What a tease. We get 2 practices at Ohio State in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and then we're right back into spring break. We're going to have to wait a week for practice number 3, but that's okay because we've got a lot more to break down here on a Monday on the beat. You know what that means. It is a Bourne Blitz presented by the Waterworks and Header Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. He is Zach Bourne. I am Austin Ward. Zach, what's the most interesting thing you heard out of those first 2 practices?
What's the most interesting thing I've heard? Arthur Smith is in fact the offensive coordinator of Ohio State. that is fact checked. Everything that we have been talking about all season has come to fruition. There are 51 new guys. Here's the thing. You and I talked about it last week. When you get into the first 2 practices of spring football and you're just in helmets and, it's a glorified running around recruiting camp, for example, I think the most interesting thing with this Ohio State team is there are 51 new faces on this football team. And what's so interesting, there's going to be a lot of people who be like, what's so interesting about that? Austin, as you know this, there is so much structure within the Ohio State football program, right? Whether it be workouts, whether it be just your weekly preparation during the week. Austin, it even goes to how does spring ball set up from meetings and indie meetings and unit meetings and practice, and how does practice go? And you've got anywhere from 17 to 25 periods, and how do the periods work, and stretching and things like that. Like, Austin, not every team does it the same way, right? So you've got 51 guys that are going out to practice for the very first time, trying to figure out, hey, where is my position group lineup at, right? Like, what does the beginning of practice, because this might be surprised, guys, Ohio State doesn't go out and just stretch first thing, right? You go out there with your position group, you do offense, defense, you're doing walkthroughs, you're doing even some jog through stuff. Really, you're out there for 30 minutes before stretching even starts, right? So it's like, Austin, how you get 51 new faces to not have complete chaos during a practice, it's kind of a big deal, right? So you get your feet underneath you these first 2 practices, because when the pads come on, man, that whistle's blowing a little bit harder. The juice is turned up a little bit more. That stereo's a little bit louder, right? Like, there's a whole bunch of things. So this previous week, yes, there were some things going on, and guys running around, and you're able to see kind of the way the first team unit looks and the second team unit looks, and guys are making plays. But in all reality, this is just to set them up for next week.
Yeah, it's it's a new spin on the acclimation period, because back in your days, Zach, it was making sure that the body was physically ready before you put the pads back on, and the NCAA rules and compliance with how practice were structured and all that. But this is a different element. It's showing you where to line up. It is showing you where to go between drills, what you're listening to, who's going to be on the microphone, where your position coach is. Like, all of that is going to be new for so many of those players. And it also puts, I think, a different level of importance on the veterans, because we've talked a ton about the 51 new faces and needing a flip card, and Ryan Day joking about, tracking who is where and figuring that out as it goes along. But if you're trying to maintain the overall sense of culture, brotherhood, practice habits day to day, practice structure and routine, you still have to have a bunch of guys who've been through that before. So you see that with the offensive linemen. There wasn't really any lack of clarity about how they were going to practice, because you had 4 starters back. And when Gabe Van Sickle was out there with that top unit on the first day, he had done all of that before. Even that's to a lesser extent in the backfield. Isaiah West and Bo Jackson are hurt, but Turbo Rogers has at least been through these practices before, so that's why he's at the front of the line. So you're looking at those guys who know what it takes, and then it's up to them, I think, just as much as anybody, right, Zach, to teach what is expected of you as a teammate, more than Carlos Lachlan doing that, although he is absolutely doing some very aggressive coaching.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say 51 guys, Austin, that's over half of your team. And you know this as well as I do. And if people have not been at an Ohio State football practice before, Ryan in this coaching staff likes running this practice like a fine oiled machine, right? Like it is clean, precise. Guys are getting after it. But in all reality, guys need to know where to go. Guys need to know what to do. And so you hit the nail on the head when, someone's on the microphone and there's 3 or 4 different things going on multiple fields, and guys need to know, where they need to be at certain times. You need senior leadership. When you have 51 guys, like there's a lot of guys that don't know where they're supposed to be going. And so you're going to see that change a little bit. You brought up my mind was going right there. Of you look at the running back room and you got all new faces. Now you do have Turbo Rogers, who's been there before and at least knows what it's like to practice. But then again, he's only going into year 2. So how much does he truly know? Is he the pace setter of the individual drills? And you brought up Lachlan. Like, I think if we learned one thing, Austin, I'll go back to the initial question now 6 minutes into the show. I think the one thing we learned last week is Carlos Lachlan has not lost a step whatsoever, no. Man. That dude is intense. That dude gets after it. If there was one coach who was amped up for week 1 and especially just hard on his position group, it's Carlos Lachlan.
Yeah, but I think we can look at that and understand why. If you have all spring without Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, and obviously they're going to get them back for training camp and they're still participating in some of the individual drills on the side. But like you look at Turbo Rogers was injured for all of his first year on campus. Legend Bay is a true freshman. Jacoby Jackson is in his 7th year, but this is his first one in Ohio State. There's so much unknown about that backfield. And we talked the last 2 months about, well, Arthur Smith is here, and we saw him in the flesh on Tuesday and Thursday. What's he going to do for the running game? Were there going to be different schematic tweaks for what Ohio State wants to do on the ground? Someone still has to carry the football, and the guys who've done that the most for Ohio State can't practice in spring. And now, so I think Carlos Lachlan's taking that. He's like Michael Jordan with the iPad. He's like, I'm taking that personally. And he is not going to let that room slip on his watch. And he certainly made that known.
He expects those guys to mature and answer the call quickly. To your point, there is no way Carlos Lachlan's going to let his position group be one of the bottom feeders of spring football. And it doesn't matter that Isaiah West and Bo Jackson aren't there. He's going to expect those guys to be dominant, to run hard, to set the tone for practices. And Austin, here's another thing. If we took anything from week 1 of practice as well, there is no shortfall of expectations of Legend Bay, right? Let's be honest. He was the talk of Twitter. He was the talk of practices. And it's more so just from maybe not so much from what he did week 1, but more so of, hey, what could this kid be like, this season, years to come? The upside of him is definitely there. And when you match expectations with a young running back, Carlos Lachlan's going to make sure that guy knows it's not easy to get where he wants to be.
Do you think there's any part of Lach that's like, hey, Ryan, let's cool it with the Tyreek Hill and Curtis Samuel comparisons.
100%. 100%. That to Coach Lach, that is the worst thing Ryan Day could be doing, right? And it's probably why Coach Lach is so hard. And you saw it in a video. I don't know if it was Tuesday or Thursday. There was a video going around where Coach Lach was just hammering Legend Bay during an individual drill, made him go back 2 or 3 times and was just on him hard. I guarantee you he's on him a little bit harder because of what Ryan Day is saying. Heck, Jeremiah Smith came out and said, tweeted something that he's going to be an absolute star. So as a position coach, you're the bad guy. You have to temper the expectations. You have to make sure that guy knows what's reality. And Coach Lach is one of the best in the business in doing that.
Yeah, he has set the tone right away in spring. The weather has been changing pretty frequently. A lovely weekend giving way to cold temperatures again. But here's the deal. You can keep your home ready for any weather with the Waterworks and Header Energy Savings Plan. Get priority heating service, members-only savings, and continuous comfort all year long. Call today to schedule the Waterworks and Header, 614-232-2222. So outside of all the conversation about Legend Bay, Zach, was there another name or two that trickled out that you are enamored by early? I know that it's 1 week. I know their acclimation practices. I know nobody's hit anything. But still, we got new information. We got to talk about it.
We do. One guy that I am super excited about, and I think a lot of other people are, is Earl Little. And I think, he's a kid, he's a man, right? That's coming from a program like Florida State, where you think of top programs in college football holistically in all of college football. Florida State's in there, right? But you think of Florida State the last 10 years, they've been, it's been an abysmal performance year over year. And you get a guy like that who comes to Ohio State, who physically is beyond gifted, right? Can do anything you want to do, is a big dude, looks the part, and then gets into an Ohio State offseason program, comes around a team where he's going to be elevated. You've seen Ohio State elevate players the last number of years, right? Just Will Howard, Quinshon Judkins, like the list goes on and on about guys who are at good programs and come here and their game just goes to a whole new level. I think that's a guy that Ohio State is going to look at and be like, it wasn't a huge splash come transfer portal time. Like, yeah, he was a highly ranked dude, but there wasn't a ton of noise around it. People weren't celebrating the streets for the signing of Earl Little. I think it's a guy that come the fall, especially going down to Austin in week 2, especially playing the kind of season you are, he's a guy who could possibly step into that Caleb Downs role and be able to play inside the box, be able to do a bunch of different things just because he is so skilled. And the dude's a big dude. Like, he's going to want to come downhill and be able to tackle guys. He's going to be able to play in the nickel and cover dudes. Like, he's going to be able to do a lot of things. And I think that's going to be a huge asset to this team.
Yeah, you could see and you could feel his impact out there. It already felt like Ohio State players in the secondary were looking to him to set the tone. Now, that's primarily going to be Jalen McLean's role, and he's also an Iron Buckeye. We'll talk about some of that as well. But even on day one, you had Leroy Roker getting up in front of the team and giving that speech. Those players, as you know, Zach, are not afforded that opportunity by accident. It's pretty significant. I don't know what it means for the next 13 practices. Terry Moore is going to have some say about the playing time, but at least for that first week, you had Earl Little, Leroy Roker, and Jalen McLean working together, and you also had a leadership component that was at least a day one platform given to Leroy Roker. We were all in the Woody on Tuesday. I mean, shocked may be too strong of a word, but on anyone that could have spoken to the team on that first day of spring camp, it was Leroy Roker. Like, what did that mean to you?
It was unexpected, but I think that goes to tell you or show you how much goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. Like, you and I could have taken bets, and you and I are fairly I shouldn't say fairly. We are on the inside of this program and know a lot that's going on. And you and I would have lost a lot of money with a bet that Leroy Roker was going to be the first guy to stand up and say something to this team. And just goes to show you how much growth there is in the offseason. Goes to show you how much once guys kind of get their footing in a program, the confidence they're able to build, and let's be honest, Austin, we saw Leroy Roker get into some games last year in some marquee times, right? Like, he was playing, he got some snaps against Miami with the season on the line. He, he made his name known at the end of the year. So what's that look like? It might be one of those guys that's a little under the radar from our standpoint of what we're expecting going into 26. And then he's a guy that, guess what? Behind the scenes, he's working his ass off. Behind the scenes, he's growing as a player. Behind the scenes, he's growing his leadership and he's finding his voice and doing those things. And next thing you know, you look out in 2026, and we could be having this conversation months from now of Leroy Roker's a dude on this team, right? And is a huge contributor and is kind of blowing people away from what he's able to do. So you never know what's going on behind the scenes. That's what's so much fun about college football, because, guys get away from their parents. They get on their own. They get away from kind of their hometowns, right, where everyone kind of bottles them up. And sometimes it takes some guys a little bit of time to get into their own. but the growth can be crazy, Austin, right? Like there are some guys that you get away from home and they just turn into a completely different dude. And it can be for the good and it can be for the bad, right? And so maybe Leroy Roker is one of those guys that no one's really talking about, but behind the scenes, everyone's like, oh, that's going to be a dude this year.
Yeah, it feels like they've got one there. They know what they have in Jeremiah Smith, who has somehow found new muscles to grow and develop and strengthen that I didn't think were possible, but he is an alien. We got another reminder of that. He's an Iron Buckeye again. He's going to make some Ohio State history because he was the only true freshman to ever earn that honor, and he's earned it in every single year that every single time that Mickey Marotti has handed it out. Don't think anyone is going to be breaking that record when Jeremiah's done. Brandon Innes got that honor as well. I mentioned Jalen McClain, and the fourth was Garrett Stover. So I don't know if those first three come as any surprise, but the fourth might be notable for something. I just don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be it could be one of the same things that we just talked about with Roker, right? Of a guy who's starting to come into his own, a year or two into the program, like, hey, here we go, right? Like Stover's coming on. And kind of Cade was the same way, right? Cade through his first number of years was, contributed, but whatever. And then his last, 2 years just completely blew up. And so I don't know what to look into that one. But you also look at the linebacker position group. And Austin, there are some dudes that are a part of that group. And I'm always going to mess up his last name, but Alliegro or is that right? Right? Alliegro.
We're gonna get it confirmed. I was told it was Alliegro, but
Alliegro, right? That's
Christian from Wisconsin.
There you go. I think that's another guy. If you want to talk about guys that have kind of made some noise in week one, he is one of those guys. And so you put him into the mix and what he can bring to this defense. And then I'm a huge fan of Alford and Pettijohn. Now Pettijohn's out, but you start looking, and obviously Peyton Pierce, who I've been a massive fan of that of for so long. You start putting those guys in, it's kind of like Stover. It might be kind of hard to see the field from that standpoint, but we do know that dude's going to run down on kickoff, going to be on all special teams, on punt return, all of them, and give us all. So, a guy like Roker, there's more open spots, more safeties play in a given game, right? And then you look at linebacker, he just might not be as open, but it tells you the kind of dude that he is. It tells you how athletically gifted Stover is when he's able to get that award. And listen, if you have the last name Stover, everyone knows you're going to work your ass off.
He's absolutely doing that. And you mentioned Cade. You brought him up a couple times with, his cousin there, and they share so many physical attributes, and they also, I think, are both really versatile players. We saw times where Cade was playing linebacker. He went down to defensive end. Did obviously finish his career as a tight end and a really good one. There's just a part of me now with the way Ohio State is talking about Garrett Stover that's like, could he do Cade things? Could he be a fullback for this team? What we saw with, Nate Roberts playing there a year ago, would it have already been better to have Garrett Stover doing that? I don't know. I wouldn't pretend to be an expert on the personnel and the scheme and how it all fits together. Cade did it. Like, maybe Garrett Stover can too.
I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, they are blue collar. They're blue collar, tough nosed dudes, right? Would I put past them? No. I think physicality wise, Cade was a little bit thicker, right? Than Garrett, from that standpoint, but doesn't mean they can't. That's a kind of guy you say, hey man, we need to put 10, 15 pounds on you this offseason. He would do it. He'd be all about it so he can get on the field and be a contributor. So who knows, Austin, you would know better than me from that standpoint. But if they're, I think if you ask Keenan Bailey, if he would take a guy like Garrett Stover, I think he would be, arms wide open. Let's go, bring him on.
Yeah, that's right. Cows don't take days off, but the Buckeyes will take a couple days away from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It is spring break, so we will continue to roll along with the coverage on the Austin Berm Show all week, as we always do. We're never going to stop talking about the Buckeyes, but there will not be any practice coverage. There will not be any snap judgments this week. We will be at Roosters later for the live show. And we will, of course, have everything else that you want. Stocks and Three Thoughts Thursday, Friday mailbag. If you want to get those questions into the Austin and Berm Show at gmail.com, please do. And then next week, more breakdowns to kick it off with Zach Bourne on a Bourne Blitz. Thanks so much for joining us on another episode of The Beat presented by The Waterworks. He is Zach. I am Austin. We'll talk to you later.